and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Bishop Butts for coming out and attending and leading us in this invocation. Once again, this goes back to what we're trying to do, invite the community to come out and help us serve and be a part of this Midtown board. Going on to item number 5, approval of our minutes for February 12, 2013.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I move the approval of our minutes with any necessary corrections.
A second.
Just a minute. Give her a chance to. Please note that Ms. Hurd has came in.
Ready?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We'll continue. You heard the motion and it's been second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Charlie, we'd like to go on to item number 6, the staff report. Do we have any questions pertaining to the code report that was given by Mr. Bryant, that was submitted by code enforcement?
Is this from the last meeting we're speaking of?
No, I'm on item number 6 now. That was in our packet. If you had any questions on that. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I did notice that we had a long discussion last meeting, and in the minutes also indicated that answers were not given to our questions directly. They were still uncertain about some of these things. And I am saying we sit here and we discuss all of these things, or we start discussing them, and they really don't have the answers, and they never come back and discuss them. So I would like to see now and in the future old business or unfinished business, if you follow what I'm saying.
So noted. Charles, I think we did say we were going to get all those answers in our next workshop, that we wanted to make sure that those answers got answered. I think we did state that, but I do know what she is referring to. Any other question pertaining to the code?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
back to what Ms. Hurd said. I've said that many of times that we need to have unfinished business, old business, because she's absolutely correct. Some of the things that we had questions we never get an answer to. And is there a reason why you can't have unfinished business on the agenda? Is there a reason?
What we'll do is when I sit down with staff, we'll sit down and take a look at probably what we can do on the amending the agenda. But at any time, any member is able to voice their opinion and bring up an item that was not completely answered. You have that right at any time, especially when we get down to the board comments. Also, even when we go down to particular items, if an item was not answered from the last meeting, and if it was not addressed between the last meeting and to the present meeting, we each have an opportunity to call Mr. Bryant or staff and make sure our questions are getting answered in a timely manner. So if that is a problem, then that's another thing that we can take up in staff meeting when we vote.
Excuse me.
Yes, ma'am.
Shouldn't it be on the record, the answer? It shouldn't be that we need to call Mr. Bryant or someone. It needs to be recorded in a record. if I stand correct.
I'm not saying that it shouldn't be, and I believe you probably are correct. And again, if we brought it back, if you called and got your answer, you can, for it will be on the record. I think what we can do is make sure we say, I met with Mr. Brian or Reed, and here's the answer to the question that was asked, that was not answered at the meeting or in a workshop also.
Mr. Chair, I think if I'm hearing both of them correctly, what they're probably thinking is that in the staff report and at the next meeting that we attend, that there should be a process by which these questions are already automatically answered and brought back, because they, as I recall, last meeting there were I think 3 specific things that were
There were some answers in questions asked
right
during the code enforcement.
right.
And if I'm recollecting it right, I did ask that they come to our next workshop, and we was trying to schedule one
Okay.
that we had multiple things that we were going to discuss so we could get everything answered.
I see.
However, though, to answer that question, I want to be able to make sure that everyone is afforded the opportunity, if something is not answered, that we can bring it back up in a meeting, which I have no problem with that, and I don't think the board would have a problem with it either. So if a question was not answered, and you had the opportunity to call that particular entity that your question was addressed to, we don't necessarily always have to wait till we come back to a meeting when we can get those questions answered prior to a meeting.
Mr. Chairman, getting back to the order of the day, I haven't heard anyone mention anything against the code enforcement report or the police department, so I move the adoption of those reports.
Well, I mean, we don't necessarily have to, I understand what you're saying and what we're trying to do, but we don't necessarily have to adopt the police department and the code enforcement report. However, if you had a question of something from that report of Mr. Bryan, now would have been the time. But if you understand what was going on in the report and you have no problems with it, or you may have seen something that was not in the report that you might want to say, well, Mr. Bryan or Reed, will you check on this particular issue, then now's the time to bring that up.
I'm not sure what your question is, but I was thinking not necessarily you were talking about answers to questions, but when things are resolved, that there should be an official record of that. For example, item 8 is redevelopment project update. But there are things that's maybe a small part of the redevelopment, something different, and it seems to me like there should be a staff report from Mr. Bryan, because he does things that don't necessarily get recorded at our next meeting, and there's no official record. An example, when we asked about the trash cans, and he did it, that's not reflected officially as in other than a comment. You see what I mean? Okay, the street has been done. So he should come back as part of his staff report and say, so on such a day, this and that has been done. You see, because that's official record, not just in our little comments, but a staff report would say, he did this, he did that, but that falls under, everything to me doesn't fall under redevelopment project update. It should be staff report to me from his department too. That's what, so he can update us on things, you see what I mean? Not just redevelopment project, but on other things that's done. That's what I thought, part of that, coming back officially saying, we talked about this, it was done, so officially come back for the record and said it was done. That's what I'm thinking, not just a question answer, but we need some documentation that if something was done somewhere in the official report, it should be noted. That's what I'm looking for.
Okay, point well taken. Well, when we get down to, again, what she had just said, when we come down to redevelopment project updates, which I know what you're getting ready to bring forth, but we can wait till we get down to number 8. Are there any other questions dealing with the staff report as far as police department and or code enforcement? And I do still encourage every member, if you have an issue that has not been resolved, again, since our last meeting, that if you can and will call those particular entities, and either you can try to get it resolved that way, and at the same time you do and can and will have the opportunity to bring it back forth to this board meeting again, especially if it was not handled in a timely manner. For instance, I requested something. It did not happen in a timely manner. I simply called Reed and Charles and sent an email, and it was handled. So, I mean, there are mechanisms in place where you can make sure your questions are getting answered in a timely manner before then. So, but everybody's points will be taken. We will review the old business and new business concept, because that is a concept that a person can choose to use. It's a format. So, with that in mind, if there are any more questions, I'd like to move on to item number 7, presentation, Mr. Bryan, by draft by, I believe it's RMG. PMG, I'm sorry. Okay. What we'll do, Mr. Harder Smith is going to come before us right now, because what's going on, we actually have a, what is it? A CRA issue that Mr. Smith would like to discuss with us.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I'm Hardy Smith, Government Relations Administrator for the City of Daytona Beach. This body, along with the entire Daytona Beach community, and of course especially the Midtown community, has had very lofty goals and aspirations and dreams, and worked extremely hard to get to the point where you are tonight, where you're beginning the discussions of the Midtown Master Plan. I'm afraid that I'm going to deliver news tonight that if you're not aware of the situation I'm going to share with you, my presentation will not be very pleasant as related specifically to the Midtown Master Plan. The news that I want to share is that the County of Volusia is considering potential action, and they've had a number of public meetings already. They've met with the city managers from across the county. This potential action could alter implementation of everything you're going to talk about tonight and in the future. It could also very definitely impact other priorities, such as reconstruction of Orange Avenue. The issue at hand is that county leadership has said that they have a need for extra money. They're short, like all other governments are. They've identified the county's portion of redevelopment funds as a potential target for getting the extra money they need to run county programs. At this point, their primary discussions are about new and potential CRAs. However, again, I want to emphasize in public meetings on the record, they are talking about existing CRAs. Nothing's final. No final votes have been taken. There will be another county council meeting on March 21st. CRA discussion and actions are on their agenda. They have indicated they do plan to move extremely fast with the actions that are being discussed. The reason that the county has indicated they want to move extremely fast with all of this is that the advice that they have is they can't go in and alter or tinker with projects where funds have been committed. Contracts have been signed, loans have been made, bonds are on the record, but on a project that is under discussion, a project where loans are not committed to, a project where construction documents aren't signed, in other words, there's no encumbrances of funds, they intend to go after that money. Now, they can't come take away money that we've already collected. I want to make that clear. At least we think they can. But what they can do is they can establish rules and regulations on how those funds are being used. They can decide they have to approve everything that you do, everything the CRA does, which is the city commission, stands as the city commission in Daytona Beach. How often do you hear in the search for jobs and bringing business and opportunity to this community, do you hear there's too much government, it takes too long to get a permit, it takes too long to get an approval, and now the county council is saying whatever before Daytona Beach does anything, they're going to have to approve it. A whole nother layer of government to have to go through. How are they proposing to do what I'm sharing with you? There are three things. Number one, there are multiple sources of county funds that go into the county's contribution into the CRA pool of money, and you're all probably aware of all those sources. They're discussing pulling those back. They have legal advice that says, well, not all the money that's coming from county sources really has to, and they don't have to give as much as they've been doing. So they intend to pull that back. The second thing that they are talking about doing, the amount of money that continues to come from county sources into the CRA pool, they would reduce the percentage. The third thing that they would do, again, I've already mentioned this, they would restrict and control the uses of the money. They would restrict and control the uses of the funds. We don't exactly know where this is going. And no one else around the county does either. I can share with you, Volusia County is not very happy with me right now. They think I've engaged on a campaign of misinformation. And I've explained to those who have called to express their concern with my delivery and my translation of what they're doing is I'm merely reporting what the county leadership is discussing in open public meetings. I think it's 180 degrees different from misinformation. I think it's the 100% truth of the discussions that are underway. Again, not very pleasant news, especially when everything has been on such an up and a positive direction. We have worked for so long in this community to bring projects to fruition that are I don't have to explain how long overdue they are. But now we're on the verge of having some very, very important projects have the rug pulled out from under us. We're even talking about the potential, this last week, the City Commission did preliminary approval, zoning approval to a new hotel and condo project. Very, very important to the tourism industry and development of everything on the beach side, all the area around the county-owned Ocean Center, for goodness sake. And right now, that project's not a done deal. It's still in the approval process. And if these rules and regulations on the use of CRA funds comes into play before that project gets signed on the dotted line, that project could be in jeopardy. So this is how real this is. This isn't something that's a concept. It's not something that's being talked about someday. Again, they're moving very, very quickly. We just felt it was the responsibility of city staff. We've been in communication with the city commissioners, but felt it was extremely important to get to our redevelopment advisory boards and share this information with you. Mr. Chairman, I know you've got a very busy schedule and agenda tonight, but I'll be glad to answer any questions that I can that you or the members of the board may have.
Thank you, Hardy. Mr. Williams, do you have any questions?
They actually have the right to redirect funds that have already been earmarked for specific projects.
As I understand it, again, very, very fluid situation here. It seems to be changing very rapidly from one meeting to the next. So all this uncertainty has got us very anxious. We don't believe that they can take funds away that have already been collected and in the bank, so to speak. But they believe, it seems like, that they can control how funds are used.
Hardy, and I'm going to go around the board. I think what probably would have been helpful is the slide that was used over at the county. And there's the community redevelopment slide. Probably been helpful and more informational if the board would have had a copy, for they probably could understand what you're talking about, dealing with the CRA. And I don't know how soon this here is going to take place, but I think the board needs a copy of the actual slide itself, of the presentation that was given on February the 28th. Then I think they will formulate some better questions. However, I still want the board to ask some questions, should you have any, and then I'll ask last.
And we'll get Mr. Chairman, we'll get a copy of that and we'll get it distributed to you. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Wilborn. Ken, was your hand raised?
Yes. Hardy, you said that there's a county meeting on March. Thank you. There's a county meeting on March. I'm just now really talking 21st.
Yes. That's the regular county council meeting. CRAs are on their agenda. Right now, as we understand it, the schedule discussion is on new CRAs. But at the last workshop they had, they got pretty deep into existing CRAs.
When you said new CRAs.
That don't exist yet.
Example?
There are several cities around the county that would like to establish new CRAs.
You used the term "this community"
Yes.
in your discussion.
Yes.
More specifically, are you saying the Midtown redevelopment area?
I think I said the Daytona Beach community and specifically the Midtown community within the greater Daytona Beach community. Because all of these projects are all priorities of the City Commission, which is the Daytona Beach community. some of these specific projects I've mentioned tonight are certainly priorities of the Midtown community.
Mr. Chairman, have we seen any breakdown of where monies are allocated in our own budget?
Here's what, well, I'm going to answer your question. I did receive a copy of the budget from last year. I know they're currently working on the budget coming up for this year. They go back with what Hardy was saying, and I'm going to answer your questions too. From my understanding, there's five potential new CRAs, Ken, Deltona, Edgewater, New Smyrna, Orange City, and Ormond Beach. What I did, Hardy, I went and did my homework a little bit on it too. So I called the county councilman if I can have a better understanding of what is actually going on with this particular situation before we get everybody riled up. And I'm coming from the county councilman point of view and not the city point of view. The meetings that Josh Wagner told me about basically were they're really looking at the new CRAs per se. They really don't want to get into the discussion too much of the older CRAs right now because they're trying to formulate these other city requests. So my question came up when I was having this discussion. I say, okay, is it on the agenda about the old CRAs? And he told me, no, the old CRAs are not on the agenda to be discussed. So I said, okay, that answered that question. Some of the concerns are the reason the county council wants to take a deeper look at the CRAs is because of the misuse and, in some of mine, the abuse of funds. I can sort of relate to that as a chairman, and some of the board members asked this same question that we've been asked. And if you was at the Orange Avenue meeting, the last meeting that we had here at the Midtown, the $1 million came up, and Reed, you basically stated, well, it's not going to come, and it's been, put over there. Well, in the paper, Ron McLemore basically stated, well, we're not going to touch your $1 million in your CRA fund. When I sit back and talk to the councilman, it's like, well, why are the city basically using the $1 million of our CRA funds to put into public utilities that runs underneath the ground? Same question I had asked, and some other board members asked. So I think what's going on, I'm just saying my opinion, gathering and listening
Certainly.
and reading, is that there's some conflict of interest going on. Then I asked the question basically, well, okay, CRAs are put in effect for 20 years. Am I correct? Read.
Longer, 30 to 40 years.
Right, you have to constantly reapply for it at a certain period. So my question is, I think we're currently on a 20-year right now. Our CRA is Midtown.
No, because of the time that these were created, they have a life to 2036, which is the sunset date.
Okay.
Because of the amendments of the plans.
So is that all the CRAs?
For us.
Or is that just Midtown?
That's for Daytona Beach CRAs.
Okay, so
except for, I believe, the South Atlantic CRA.
So
They all.
if we don't aspire to 2036, just from reading the slide, and I want the board to get a copy of the slide presentation because I'm sure you'll have some questions. And if you go over to the meeting on the 21st, you'll be able to address the county council, I believe. Aren't they able to do that?
Yes.
Then you'll
Public
be able
comment.
to ask questions dealing with it. Another thing, when we were sitting back, when I was talking to the county councilman, because I think it's very important that we know how the funds are being used. Our CRA as a whole has been told many times that because we're not an authority, I guess, to even question the budget, I think it's good that the county can question it. Because if you don't feel that you should tell us as an advisory board and or as a citizen, then maybe somebody else do need to come in that can say yes or no. So again, that goes, to my opinion, the infighting on the CRA dollars and the use of the budget as a whole. If we're looking at the CRAs, for new CRAs, I mean, and it's just my opinion, then that's something that they have to do. But I don't see what this particular policy is going to affect us. Maybe some of the policies that they implement may affect how we have to do business, which I'm not for sure on everything that they're trying to implement on what it affect administrative-wise and things like that. But I just hope that whatever the case may be, that we all be able to sit down, look at it, analyze it, and be able to call your different councilmen, all the county councilmen, to make sure that we don't lose the CRA, because I think that's the ultimate goal, is not to lose the CRA. We don't want to lose that at all, regardless. But if it's something that's going to put some other guidelines in place that can help us as a community, then I'm really for it, because we need some parity. And I think the demise of our CRA, if it was being handled right over the years, then our community wouldn't look the way that it looks. So my point from that is that I'm in agreement with what you're saying. I understand. I appreciate your alertness as a board, but I think sometimes we need to make sure that we get to the actual bottom of what's really going on, because you stated yourself earlier, though, the county council may be mad at you for putting information out. I just want to make sure we continue to get the right information.
Absolutely.
So that's what's very important.
And you made several very good points that I didn't want to forget and come back and offer some insight on these. And all the points you made as far as the issues you were raising are accurate issues. On the question of the term of CRAs, I don't believe that it would be the city's understanding that the length of a term could be altered in a negative way. I think once that action has been taken, it's been taken. However, whatever the life expectancy is, so to speak, that's what it's going to be. However, the critical thing, again, this is all about money. What the county believes they can do is not alter the life of the CRA, but they believe they can alter the lifeblood of the CRA. So if they're putting a tourniquet around the body of the CRA and there is no money, there is no lifeblood flowing in, what's the CRA going to do? It's going to die. And you'd be dead for another 20 years before somebody takes you out of the room. But that's the point that I want to make about the term. The question about, it is true that the part of the discussion that the county leadership is having, again, this is all public record. It's all on tape, all in the minutes of county council discussions and workshops with their staff. They have discussed, in their opinion, either misuse, CRA funds not used the way they think CRA funds should be used. There are lots of opinions on how effective CRAs have or have not been. And that's part of the discussion. But there are also multiple, anyone who's listened to these conversations would understand there are multiple conversations and topics that are being covered within this overall conversation. And so the oversight, the guidance, all of those things, that's one of the things they want to get into. My focus tonight is on the money itself. And they have stated on the record, the county needs money. existing CRAs, in their opinion, are a drain on county financial resources. And they want the money that this board and people in our community have come to expect. We may have disagreements over how it's used or not used or what it's going to be for, but there won't be any money to have any argument over. The county wants to take it. So that's the bottom line there. Now, on Orange Avenue, yes, Ron McLemore has said in his financial plans for the Orange Avenue project, and he's worked extremely hard to put the financing together. Let me just say, that money is not in the bank.
Is not what?
That money is not in the bank for Orange Avenue. The city of Daytona Beach is applying for loans that must be approved. Somebody has to say thumbs up or thumbs down. The money's not in the bank. There are other funding sources that have been identified, and we're certainly hopeful at this point that we're 100% successful. Should those efforts to secure funds not be successful, the money that we've talked about for a number of months that's set aside in Midtown redevelopment funds is Plan B. It's a backup should it be needed. So this is very, very fluid. Now, the county can't take that money back, we don't believe, but they are on a path where they could restrict its use. So yes.
Hold on. Mr. Tooley had one first.
Okay, my first question is, how will this affect the quality of the distribution of funds?
There wouldn't be as much money to distribute. And
Okay.
and number two, the distribution use could be affected.
Okay.
In other words, some activities that are presently eligible may not be eligible in the future.
Okay, you're saying that it could be affected. You're also
Correct.
saying that there may be no funds to distribute.
That's right.
By the same token, is it not possible that if the funds were coming from a central location, the access to them would be more equal to everyone?
I'm not quite, if you could give me an example.
Well, I can give you a perfect example.
Okay.
The funds that go to Main Street Redevelopment Association is totally different from the funds that come to Midtown. Therefore, if there was a centralized location that the funds were distributed from, I'm simply asking to get information,
Okay.
would there be more equality in the availability of those funds?
Let me see if I can get close to your answer,
Okay.
because I'm trying to understand the question. I understand the question, but I think an answer for that question really needs to come outside the conversation I've initiated tonight. I think it's a totally separate. It's a very valid question, but it's outside the jurisdiction of the question or the issue I'm framing tonight.
Maybe I can step in. And I think I know what Reverend Dooley's asking. But to understand what Hardy's talking about, what Hardy's concerned about the county doing is not contributing money into the tax increment fund to begin with.
Okay.
So
The money wouldn't be there.
the obligation that currently exists to spend redevelopment dollars in redevelopment areas only arises once monies from taxes from the city and from various county sources go into that tax increment fund. Before they go into the tax increment fund, there's not an obligation that they be spent in a redevelopment area, and there's not an obligation that they be spent in the city.
Okay.
That Now, there may be strings on some of those tax dollars because some of the monies that Hardy's talking about are for special taxing authorities that are under the county. And in contrast to, say, our ad valorem taxes, which the commission can spend where it wants, there are some strings associated with those special authority taxing dollars, but they're not the CRA strings that we're talking about. So if the county does what Hardy's concerned about, those monies never come into any of the tax increment funds. And under no circumstances would tax increment funds that right now go to Main Street, once they're in that tax increment fund, it's actually a separate fund. There's no scenario I think we're talking about here unless the county just decides that it's going to rededicate dollar for dollar those funds elsewhere within a redevelopment area. And that's up to the county's discretion. But there's no mechanism for that to happen once it's in a tax increment fund.
State law doesn't allow the mixing of the funds. So state law would not allow a pooling of all redevelopment funds and then a redispersal. Is that the question?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Both of you, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
And I'm going to come to you, Ms. James, but Hardy, and this again goes down to having the slide. Basically, Hardy, when you're talking about the expenditures, I think that's what your question is also. The slide basically said that the county contribution for capital only. There's some modification addition that they was making. There'll be no county contributions to capital for utility projects. Non-capital and administrative expenses limited to 5% of city contribution, and the debt pre-approved by the county council. And then on the allowable expenses, they were basically saying the county contribution restricted to specific projects or expenditures as defined in the CRA plan, and that's stuff that we be working on, correct? The CRA plan. And then limits allowed for administrative and non-capital costs. Those come down to budget issues that would affect how the CRA would administer its funds and or what they can and can't do and what would be contributed to it. I think that's basically what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And I believe, Reed, if I'm correct, the chair is reading from the handout from the county manager.
That must be a presentation, the presentation to the county.
Yeah, it was a presentation to the county.
Do you have the front page of that? I've seen several different versions. Does the front page say new CRAs at the very bottom?
Yeah.
Okay, those restrictions that you're talking about are applying in that document, if I'm correct, to CRAs that don't exist.
To the new CRA.
To the new CRAs.
Okay.
What we're really concerned about is, again, it's about the money. Money makes people do some, wild things, right? But they're coming after the money. So it's the oversight that's one whole different issue. But they've got to find a way to get to the money. So if they can impose the same types of restrictions that they're CRAs that don't exist yet don't mean anything to the county as far as money goes, because there's no money lost. Follow me? Mm-hmm. So that's a whole nother conversation. It's not relative to what's impacting us here in Daytona Beach. So if that makes sense, it's almost like there's all these things going on over here, like a magician. I got this hand waving and all that, but I got the Daytona money ball right here and I'm putting it in my pocket, and you're still over here looking at this. That's what we're afraid that's happening. But if they applied the same restrictions, no capital cost, no utility cost. Those are water lines, they're sewer lines, they're paving roads, they're building buildings. Administrative cost means staff goes away. What it means is there's not going to be a CRA. Roughly, if I'm right, give a penny or two here, but out of every $1 that's in the redevelopment fund, roughly 42 cents, 43 cents, 44 cents, maybe a little more.
Yeah, well,
is county money. So if you take away almost half of the fund, the city the city doesn't have the money.
There's another provision, and may I talk about the 5% rule? There's a provision in there.
Yeah, I've seen that.
That says the county is all capital in their definition what capital is. The city is portion they're going to restrict to all capital under their definition, and you can have a use of 5% for all non-capital. That means all operating, all the things you want to do, have been doing, whatever that is, including the administration. That means whether it's a redevelopment project manager, whatever those costs are to make the things happen that are happening, to pay for studies, the things that we're looking at now, all of that, you can't pay for. In fact, right now, if my calculations are right, we're about, if this went into effect today, Hardy, we'd be talking about there'd be a total of $6,000 this year available to pay for everything other than capital, under their definition.
But, go ahead, Dr. James. And then we'll come back.
And I'm going to go back to that point in a few minutes, but the first thing I want to comment is on the Orange Avenue.
Yes.
The issue. For me, the issue is not the Midtown CRA being back up. The issue is the project goes beyond Midtown.
Absolutely.
So somebody else's money from Martin Luther King on up to Beach Street, their money should be back up too. That's the issue with that.
Yes, you can't, yes, Midtown money at Ridgewood you can't cross the street. So Midtown money has to stay in Midtown. Beach Street CRA money would have to be used on that end
Yeah,
of
but
it.
nobody's ever mentioned that they have backup money. So that's the issue with that. The other part about use, and I don't know if you've read the hometown news thing, but I kind of agree with them about some restrictions because the things I saw in the hometown news that they were using for and defining certain area blighted, I have a problem with that too. The other thing about using money for administration and all that, in my previous life I dealt with nonprofits, and people were getting a $100,000 grant, and 37% of the grant was for personnel and other things, and that's not the purpose. I agree that should not be the purpose of the money. You already have staff. You don't need to use CRA to hire staff. So I kind of agree that only a small percentage of the money should be for those kinds of things. The money should go into actual projects, not hiring people. And then once you hire them, you'll have money to do the project. So I kind of agree with that there should be some restrictions on how the money is used. The problem is who is involved in determining what the restrictions are going to be. So I guess if it's just the county council, I have a problem with that. So I don't have a problem with restricting the use, because as I can see, a lot of people can define things different ways and get money out of that. So
Well, if I could, I'm hearing what you're saying, and again, not the first time I've heard that, and probably not the first time everyone else in this room has heard those very same concerns. I think they're valid, legitimate concerns. But if I can, anytime you talk about CRAs in Daytona Beach or in Volusia County, I think we'll all agree that there are a number of different questions, there are a number of different issues, there are a number of different philosophies, and it's just one big, great drama anytime CRAs come up. And I'm not making light of that. I'm just saying that's a fact that exists. But I'm trying to focus here tonight and share the concern. If the city is correct in the fear that it has, there won't be any money for anyone to have a disagreement over. There won't be any money for anyone to audit or hold anyone accountable or worry about which side of town gets money and which side of town doesn't get money or understand CRAs. There won't be any money. There won't be any money. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe you just stop it all. But right now, I know that Daytona Beach is on the verge of a lot of great things happening. Can CRA money be used and invested? Can any tax dollars be used and invested in a smarter, more efficient, more appropriate, more responsible way? Absolutely. Absolutely. That's what we're all striving for. Can things in the, we all the time, all of us can look back in the past and see things that, well, maybe that wasn't such a good idea, but that sure doesn't mean we have to keep doing things the way they were done. And we're all trying to move forward in a better way. So I hear what you're saying, but the concern I'm sharing tonight doesn't dismiss what you're saying. I've been married 39 years, and one thing I've learned is I can't argue feelings. So when someone has some feelings, I can't argue about that. I better respect that. It's taken me 39 years to get it, but I'm trying.
Private joke.
I think I understand. But the point is, again, not to belabor it, and again, Mr. Chairman, you've been very generous with your time tonight. There is a concern by the city. The city commission has been, the city manager has been very close communications with the city commission. The city manager has been in communication and in meetings with this other city managers from around the county. So there is something going on, and I don't want to stand here tonight and hopefully come across as Chicken Little, but we're afraid the sky is falling, and it is not going to be good. I'd rather have the money and let's figure out this stuff and let's figure out how to get it right. That'll be a whole lot easier than saying we had dreams and what happened to those dreams. Mr. Chairman.
You had any questions, Ms. Cato?
No, go ahead.
Ms. Benjamin?
No.
Ms. Hurd?
No, they've been answered, basically.
Hardy, thank you for your presentation. Charles, I think, has some handouts on board. You also have in front of you the county council's information. If you have any questions, the emails have been provided to you. The phone numbers have been provided to you along with their addresses. So if you have some feelings or should you want to contact your representatives, the information is down there along with the time of the next meeting, which is on March 21st at 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. Again, I'm not for sure if it's on the agenda to deal with our CRAs. That's the only thing I'm not for sure about, Hardy, so I'm not going to sit here and say it. But I know the new CRA information is what they've been basically discussing. At least that's how it was explained to me.
Yes.
But it's always a concern, and at least they out in front of it. But if we have any other questions, then thank you for coming out and explaining it.
Members of the board, Mr. Chairman, thank you for your time and letting me inject into your agenda and very insightful questions. I certainly appreciate those. Thank you so very much, and we'll keep you informed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time we have a presentation by PMG and Associates.
Take the wind out of our sails.
Good. Okay, I'm Phil Gonot with PMG Associates. I know we've met and talked to many of you before, and our work was to look at the strategic plan for commercial redevelopment. And there we go. Which way is it going to work?
Am I in the way? Is my big head in the way?
There it goes.
They did it. Good. Okay, the purpose of our analysis was to recognize the conditions in the district and look at bringing the interests together, particularly to measure the demand for commercial space, and then identify specific businesses that could be attracted and then really plan for the future. One of the things we'll talk about a little bit later is the coordination with the master plan and how they work together, and we'll talk about that a great deal. What we want to do is identify the needs in the community and what they've been established. Which one does it? Let's run in the back. That one, right? You can tell I'm not an electrical engineer. Right? Ah, that's why. Here we go. Good. Okay. We went with a great deal of community input for this particular analysis because we want this to be a community plan. It's the only way that you're going to develop something that fits the needs of the people is to make sure you talk to them. We had input and consultation with a number of stakeholders. We had 20-plus meetings individual with a number of different people talking about their needs, what they see the issues are in the district, what we can do to develop something that of value for them. There were the 2 public meetings with the advisory board. Again, the discussions were very lively and very good in terms of what you see the needs were. We also conducted a focus group with students and staff at Bethune-Cookman University because they're a major part of this particular district. We wanted to see how they fit in. And the consensus were there's a number of different items that seem to be the main focus of commercial needs. Not the only, but the primary ones. And that include grocery store. And if really can't put a full grocery store, looking at fresh produce, making sure that that is available. And considering the fact that this district has been designated as a nutritional desert, that's hugely important. And it's something to really follow through with how we can address those particular points. And we looked at it from a number of different prospects. Family restaurants. Don't think we really need any more or that many more fast food restaurants, but we needed something where a family can go and go out on a regular basis. Specialty clothing. But one of the other things we want to look at was improved transportation access. There was a situation we said that there was not ability to move from one part of the district to another for many of the people. They don't have their own transportation. One of the things we had a feedback from the students at the university, same situation for them too. So we looked at that and what's there now, and then we looked at some ideas that can be addressed. We started many years ago, the company's in business since 1984, and I thought when I was going to do market analysis that I never get into land use planning. But we found out that you cannot ignore it. Those kind of aspects in terms of transportation, current access and those issues, as well as aesthetics, are very important in that particular aspect too. So we looked at those and how they apply to this district. One of the things was looking at the vacant properties. And as you can see here, most of those properties are small residential ones in the southern portion of the district. And certainly, as you see here, there's really not that much in a commercial activity. So what we look at is the main along ISB, Nova, and up on the north with Bethune and Ingram is the main areas to look at. And we spot here some of those sites that we feel that are important in terms of vacant properties and what can go with it. And here's an example. When we don't have this in the handout, we added it a little bit later. This is one of the vacant parcels on ISB. The problem with this for development is it's not that big. and it would really need to be combined with some other properties to make it really usable. You see that the length here and not a great deal of depth. And there's a number of those. So we can bring these together. One of the other aspects is that when we first started, this was not a vacant property, and that's why you don't see it on the map. It's on Nova Drive, across from the Burlington part. That was knocked down, so it showed up on the property appraiser as an occupied commercial activity. No longer is. Is this a good site for future commercial development? The answer is it is. And that might be one, because with you have vacant land, it's easier to develop as you can move along. One of the other things, recognizing the issue of bus routes. As you look, there's really only one route that gives you an east-west connection through the district. One really on the north-south, another possibility point. But movement through the district with the bus system is poor. And that's something that we would suggest could be worked on. And I understand that Old Trend is not going to be go ahead and put in routes just because you ask them. But if you put together some needs in the community, at least I think you can get some kind of a possibility of adding some routes. And this gives you a image of their entire system, and the dark line in here is the district. You see that east-west, north-south just revolves around the district, and there are only a few intersects at very few places. And we're concerned about that because, again, a lot of the students don't have vehicles. Some of the people who live here don't have that much transportation access. And so we're concerned about that in the long run. And we think that's one way to work with is to press upon the bus system how important it is for people in this community. The other is we look at existing shopping centers. This is a competition in the area. These are all the ones within the city limits. This data source on this was the International Council of Shopping Centers that have them listed. And in the report, you'll see this map is in here, but there's also a table of all of these centers in terms of how big they are, who's the ownership on them, what stores are in there too, so get an idea of what the competition is. Okay, we started working with the demographics of the area. You'll notice dealing with the population, the first two lines. In the 12 years from the 2000 census, you see there's been a drop in population. It's been approximately 19% since that time. That's people who are leaving the district because they don't have as much opportunities in terms of housing that they feel was appropriate for their families or jobs, so they're moving out of the area. I think this is one thing we need to address in terms of providing appropriate housing for the people in this area, and there is plenty of room in the district to do that. Again, we're looking at commercial parts in our project, but we understand you have to have people to make a community, and you have to have people there to shop at the stores that you're developing. So we understand that part of it. The other thing is looking at those that under the poverty range, and that figure is high. It's nearly 40%. Again, it's an issue that if we don't have jobs, the people can't work and support their families, and they can't afford the housing that they need to live here. So those are things that we want to address. But when you look at the employment, remember we have a population in the district of 4,700 people. And as you look on this one in seasonality, which is the population, if you will, from Bethune-Cookman, it's almost as big as the people who live here on a permanent basis. So there's some real value associated with that. Also, these students have a fair amount of money to spend. And we looked at that and some other things. One of the things that's a problem for us is there's a lot of their spending is on campus. The cafeteria, for example. As they told us, the cafeteria at one point was terrible when no one would eat there. But they redid it in the last couple of years, and now there's some issues there that we have to look at. One of the things that they noted, which was interesting because it was echoed in the stakeholders' interviews, was they wanted something that was open later at night. And people who live here said that. These students said that. They're not talking about a 24-hour place, but something later than 8 o'clock at night. You know, something closer to 10:30, something of that nature. So that's a situation that fit with just the people who live here and the students together. This is, I think, you might remember from the advisory committee meeting, we had this slide we talked about before. This is from a document called Claritas. They're a source of spending on retail. And what we look at is the gap, which means money that is spent by people who live in a district who go out and spend it outside the district. Well, that's lost money. That's money we think can stay here. And that was the initial concentration in terms of where we need to focus. And the ones that are highlighted in yellow are those areas that have that primary focus. We also looked at the spending by the people who live here and the students. You notice it's a significant amount of money. $40+ million from the residents and $26 million from the students. So that's, again, a very valuable source that we want to tap. Even though they may not spend in the area as much as the people who live here, it's still $26 billion. And then broken down to specific categories, we look at these numbers too and see where they're spending the money. What this does is leads us to figure out to some degree what kind of development we should look at here. So when we looked at the specific retail analysis, we looked at trade areas, the ability to purchase, how they spend their money, new competition, the other particular issues. So we started looking at a trade area. If you see in the map, you might see that star there, that is the center of the district. And this is a 15-minute drive time, which means that this is for somebody who lives at those ends of the red line. They could drive to the center there in 15 minutes. So this gives you an idea how far wide people can come. But we also decided that we wanted to focus on a very narrow area to really look at the concentration. And what we did is looked at a polygon. And this polygon is what we're calling a focused market area. It's that has absolute interconnection with the district. And the blue line in the middle is the boundaries of the district. The red line is that outstanding focused market area. And what that generated was a number of targeted businesses. These are the businesses that have the best chance of success locating in the Midtown area. So if we're going to focus on trying to bring people in, these are the types of things that have a better chance of success than anything else. Does it mean that some other business couldn't come in? No, you're glad to have them in many cases. But these are the ones that have the best chance. Because the spending by the people who live here or go to school here are in these areas, and they are currently spending this money someplace else. And that's what we need to do, is look at attracting them here instead of that other places. So we developed we got a model that's called the Retail Tenant Directory. And it's a national source, and what it does is it has a program, and you put in the demographics of your community in terms of what types of areas that you're looking for. And it will give you the names of the companies that are looking to expand in Florida, one of the things we looked at, and are looking to serve that demographic. It gives you what their needs are, where they want to locate, what kind of place they're looking for, their market, who they're marketing to, the kinds of person, whether it's a mid, low, high income group, what sex they're marketing to, because many of these, you just look at the other, are marketing to women, because that is the primary market, and other information, including who to contact about coming into a particular development. You saw copies of the draft report. There was also an appendix that goes with that. And Those companies that we identified are in that appendix, that information. We started with 1,156 companies, covering the full gamut from groceries to clothing stores to ice cream shops to everything else. And then we went through them in detail in terms of what they're looking for. We broke it down from that 1,156 to 80. 80 specific companies that have a reasonable connection with Midtown, or could have a reasonable connection. There's a number of others that we found that could do it too, but we said because they have competition in the immediate area, it would make sense. I'll give you a perfect example. Is one of the ones, I think, when Charles and I were over at ICSC in Tampa, is Fresh, Lime Fresh, which is a Mexican restaurant. Well, they just opened up at the Speedway. So are we going to get them to come here? No. So we took them out. Okay, they met our first screen, but when we looked at the realistic nature of it, it wasn't going to happen. So we decided to move on from them. So the ICSC, International Council of Shopping Centers, has a great deal of information. And they provided that as maps that we used a little bit earlier. But they mentioned a number of things at that point, which I thought were very useful when we look at attracting someone here. And these are recent trends. Recent trends mean like today. There's a great deal of expansion occurring in the state of Florida. Many of these particular chain groups are expanding. There are food places, there are clothing stores, there are department stores. They're all expanding in Florida. The bad news is they're going to smaller sizes. And why that's bad, it's good for Midtown because I think it might be easier to attract someone in because of what we've got here. What's bad is that 3 stores won't fill up as much space as they used to. And I'll give you an example of the trends. Most of the restaurants now are going to 2,500, 3,000 square foot units. They used to be about 5,000 or 6,000. Office Depot, which you might know just bought Office Max, cuts the competition down. Their stores were between 18,000 and 20,000 square feet. Their new stores are 6,500 square feet. So obviously they're going to go in a smaller footprint. Now you think, gee, why would they do that? Why would they do smaller things? They are still capturing 93% of their sales from the stores with breaking them down to 1/3 of their size. What happens is you go in, you want something that they're not carrying, they'll order it for you out of the catalog, and they'll deliver it to your home, your business or home the next day for free. And that's how they're doing it. So that means when you're putting in something like that, it's going to go smaller. Walmart's expanding quite a bit. And Walmart also has what they're calling the urban stores. They're smaller. They're much smaller. They're not like the superstore down in Bayville. They're primarily only the grocery and a few other things with it. But they're about 1/3 of the size. They're also putting them closer together. We're working with Walmart on 2 in the city of Fort Lauderdale right now, and they're 1.5 miles apart. One is one of these small ones, one is a superstore. So they're working that particular arrangement. They think that's working better for them. If you want to get the hedge trimmer or the other hardware stuff, go to the superstore. If you need groceries for your family, you go to these new small ones. You don't have to go to the other one. So that's what the point is, what they're looking at. The other thing is there's a number of resource materials that I was able to get from them, and I think when we sit down with Charles and Reed, we're going to talk. They have a number of different documents about that they've done some research on shopping centers, marketing for them, and how they fit in with redevelopment. And so we'll make that available to you as well as some other types of things that we picked up from Main Street Conference. And that affects this area in 2 particular ways. One is we were able to get some people to commit to, if you needed help establishing something, they would be able to come in and do that. One is looking at, based to that produce idea of a fresh market. I know there's already one in town. It doesn't mean we can't work through another one that really works here in Midtown. And that's one. And this was actually a Main Street conference in North Carolina, and they said yes, they would provide all of their backup resources for you to be able to do that, which is very specific, not just in how you recruit the farmers, the producers of it, but events to go along with it to make it a more usable type of thing. You don't go there to pick up your tomatoes and onions and stuff. You go there and do a couple of different things. So that's what we're looking at. The other one is, and we'll talk about it in length a little bit later, is what to do with your second floors. And you've got a number of them. I guess on Ingram there's some, and some other ones there. I mean, these are always typically places that are not used. And yes, we're talking about commercial retail here, but those are primarily office, but it doesn't mean they don't work together. It means they probably work pretty well together. You're not going to put retail on the second floor. Okay, the master plan. The master plan, I think, came up with about, I had 4, but I think we found out later it was about 7 centers, totaling about 1.7 million square feet. That's a lot of square feet. Our market analysis, which is current today, there's a demand for 152,000 square feet. Does that mean it will not grow in the future? It does not mean that. We've even talked about in the report ways it could and will grow. If you increase the residential area, one thing. When you start building some centers, they will work among themselves and start to build. And there's growth. If we can make Midtown a destination, that would be another way. Will it take a while to get to 1.7 million square feet? It will. So instead of doing the 7 centers pretty quickly, maybe we go with 3 quick and start one that works for a more of a regional type of thing. I've got a picture of that we're going to talk about. And then another one later that works more for the community, which will probably be on MLK, something closer to the university too. So one of the examples here is the closed auto dealership. To me, a valuable piece of property. Obviously, you can't call it underutilized. It's not utilized at all. This might be something working with the ownership there to look at one of the new centers, which is identified in the master plan as one of them. We think it's a very good one and two of your major attraction to go through first. Because where it's located, we found that actually there's more traffic on Nova than there is on ISB. So something that can be able to attract from both directions is probably a very good idea. So we like that particular location. This is the Burlington part, which has, it's reasonably full, but there's some issues with it. But that empty lot that we did, where it was building was right across the street. So is this another location for more of the regional type of thing? It's just up the road for the other one, but because it's empty, it's probably a pretty good location for where to go. This is the old police station. This probably is the best use is residential. The problems with it is the cost to take down the old building. And then probably why the city has not been able to find a buyer to date. But maybe something can be worked through with that to help somebody get in here. And this would probably be a better residential location than a commercial location. I think the other ones we saw were probably better for those. This, I think, is up on Ingram. And this is the example of the second story. Of these again. I knew it was that direction. But the point here again is probably offices would be the use. But what we'd like to do is see if we can figure out some ways to help these property owners to get those particular areas leased. Then they will be able to come down, shop at the places there on the ground floor, and this is where something, I think this is make it a full community. Although you have to look at commercial, don't ignore office, because they're very good. They may be there only during the daytime, but they do eat lunch every single day. So those are some things we want to look at. So meeting the master plans, what we want to look at is, again, increasing the residential development in the areas, expanding facilities at BCU. Now, they talked about they've got some problems with the dormitories. Some of them are very old, poor condition, and they're going to have to do something with those. Probably what they're going to do is rebuild some place that they're going to take those down. They also are interested in maybe having off-campus student housing, which means working with private people to build those particular housing. We think these are very good. Are they going to get as high a value as you'd be if they were permanent residents? No. But again, you got to work with what you've got there. We need to work about being a regional attraction. And then the other issue is an entertainment district. One of the things that we see a lot of different places is this is the basis for attracting someone to the area. And the discussion you had earlier about counties, one of the things they don't like is what they call parties, which are really festivals. The first ones that started in CRA was in the city of Delray Beach. It was a jazz fest. And I knew the gentleman who was a director during that particular time, and he says every single time they had a jazz fest, he had someone come in the office the next day looking for office space. Every single time. So
Delray Beach?
Delray Beach. They currently do the same kinds of things, probably work more out of the DDA than at the CRA. They have festivals. They have a neighborhood dinner. The restaurants in the area, they line up tables up and down the street, and everybody has their party dinner together. They have, which I still haven't seen because I'm a little afraid to, the high heel race. Women have to race in high heels. Don't know why, but it attracts a crowd. So these are things that happen. But what they do is they bring people in. They also start filling up their spaces again. So, it's something to reach out. You're known. You're known because you have an entertainment and people want to come there. So the goals that we established, working through the needs of the community and what they can support, is adoption of the design guidelines. I know that they are in a master plan and they need to be adopted. They need to be moved forward. We need to look at grant programs, probably with the existing property improvements, some facade improvements and some other issues too, to make those existing businesses work a little better. Moving the auto-related uses from ISB. I know this is going to be a bit of a war, but as I said, I've never driven down a street, a main artery, and said, oh, I'm going to go in here and buy a car. Never done it. The only time I've ever gone into a tire place is when I needed one. It's not something that you do on a regular basis. So we need to, but that means you need to provide a place for them, and that's something else that can be built into the district plan, something off of that roadway where they can get to. And then when people want that kind of business, they know where to go to get it because they're there. An incentive and partnership program. What this means is that some cases you need to look at incentives for developers to come in. Now, this is going to be difficult if the county has their way. Very difficult. But it's something I think you need to move toward. What we suggest in this particular issue, and the best one around is probably the city of Gainesville, and they have rules. You have to do certain things, and as you do certain things, you get points. You get enough points, you can get incentives. In that case, they use some of the TIF money for that. That's both a good and a bad thing, but the other is that the TIF money can be used for some of the improvements that are needed in the area, some of the infrastructure. So those can be worked out as you go along, but you should have in place, assuming that you still have TIF money to use, how your incentive program is going to work. The only thing I would warn you about with that is where you think things are maximums, the developer think it's a minimum. Where you can give up to a certain percentage, they think that's where they start. Well, no, this is what you give, and you don't bend the rules. Don't bend the rules for anybody. Make sure that you give them, but make them fair so these people can work. They also need to prove to you that because of the conditions in the community, in the district, they have to have this incentive to make it work. They have to prove it to you. And they also have to prove they should get a normal rate of return, but they shouldn't get a penny more than that. And so those are the things that you have to be careful about. Improve relationship with BCU. I know it's gotten much better as the situation has moved along. And the people that we have dealt with over there have been fabulous. They, again, I think I may have mentioned to you before, I've offered to host the advisory board for discussions. They are looking to do that. They want to be as helpful as they can for this community, too. Improve infrastructure. I've heard a number of stories about the pavement and the drainage issues, utility issues, but I'll talk about another one a little bit that I put under infrastructure that I think maybe something can be addressed immediately. Business development programs, promote the district, maybe somebody who's in charge of this on a regular basis. Okay, implement the master plan. There's a number of grant programs that can be applied for that fit in we should identify those. We'll talk about those again in a minute. And the partnerships that's the public-private partnerships. It's things that you just really need to develop. Now, this is my thoughts on the auto-related ones. Not to pick on these particular folks. But again, this is the part that scares me most. The tank here. That's not something that you want in a heavy commercial area, is a propane tank sticking right out in the front yard of the business. Those are some things, they're hard to get rid of. You have to grandfather in, but you need to be able to do some work on that. Now, infrastructure. This is the street lighting in most of the district. This is street lighting in the district. My understanding, there was a program that got put together with the school to get these lights. We need to look about that too. That's the way I say it is that to me is infrastructure, and it's something you need to move about. The funding sources, one of the things we looked at, of course, the first one available is, again, assuming that you stay alive, is TIF. Use it very prudently, availing your public-private partnerships. There's also the possibility of CDBG monies as the community development block grants. There's some sites that I think have some issues in terms of spillage over the years and contamination. If you've got that propane tank up there, that could be one of them. And those are very logical. The stormwater master plan. There's some movement with the master plan here in town, and I think that's a way to fund some of those projects, is those particular points, because there's a funding mechanism in them as well. The Florida Safe Routes to School. This is a particular program that's managed by the Department of Transportation. And what they do is work on issues, mostly at intersections and crossing, where children, elementary, middle school level, get to school. And you've got a couple of different places in the district. I think you need to look at these, about building these. These are some of the things you can do right away. And then at least that'll improve those areas. It might make a big difference in terms of the visual of the area, but most importantly, it will be safety for the children. And so I think that's something that the district should move on. One of the things that's very good when you're in a CRA is to get some wins. And that's a win. And so I think you need to move toward that program. There's some health programs, probably because of the nutritional desert. And then these other ones are basically state programs. There's historic cultural issues and some other ones that are very good sources. What we have found, and I think it's in the report, that there is a directory on both the state level and on the national level of programs that fit and are directed for areas like Midtown. Go through them. I think those are things that you really have the opportunity to improve. Okay, we put an action plan in there, and it was a number of different areas. They were short-term. When we're talking about short-term, we're talking about the next couple of years. Then there's a longer term, which might be 5 years or more. They cover all these particular areas, and there's some things that you need to get out and start doing. There's those things that you can identify very quickly. I think the promotion of the district of what's there is a good one. Looking at some things like the fresh market, if it can be done and not conflict with the other one in town, move on those quickly, because that'll address two problems: the nutritional issue and the exposure to the rest of the community issue. You need to do both of those and need to probably get on those right away. I'd get on the safe routes to school immediately, because again, visibility is important for you to do that. We think there's a lot of potential. We think we said before, we don't see a conflict with anything in the master plan. But their projection of the square footage, we think, is a little bit much for the short term. Is it doable in a long term? Possibly. But for right now, you need to start. You need to get a center in quickly. We would suggest that one with the old auto dealership, or the one further up on Nova Road is your first for the larger one. Smaller community ones, as we noted on Martin Luther King, and those places that will help attract students there as well as the community. We think that if you have the right product together, you can fill up another 152,000 square feet pretty quickly. What should you do right away? I think you should move on those particular grant programs. You should probably start developing a introduction to the development industry. And what we would suggest on that is there's a number of different ways that you can go with it. We're working with the Regional Transportation Authority in South Florida, and they were able to build a relationship with the Urban Land Institute, ULI. And they are hosting developers to come in of how to put product together in a particular area. Because that list of businesses I gave you, they're not going to come in and buy the shopping center themselves. They're going to rent and go into one. So you need to have someone to put the project together. Okay, you can do it by acquiring property, but I don't think you got the money for that. You know, and I'm not sure when or if you'll have the money for that. So you need to do something with a developer to start putting that together so you can start attracting these people. Now, could you use the CRA as a conduit to assemble properties where you're out of money? That's another way to go with that. But if you start having a forum and bringing the development community in, showing where you already have gone with the master plan, with other things that you've done, and where you're moving, that is the way to get somebody interested in doing it. The thing that came out of the ULI meeting with the developers in South Florida is there's one thing that they look for immediately, and that's leadership. Those that can lead and can bring things together are people they're interested in. Yeah, they like tax rebates. They're great with that. But they want someone to know that you're going to lead the way, and they will then help you do that. So you need to show the leadership that you can bring them in. And then I think you will be able to get developers in that will be able to assist you and start putting together what you need to do. Will fit both our analysis and what the master plan does. I'm sure you got questions.
Ms. Benjamin? Ms. Jameson?
I like everything I heard, but let me tell you what I keep going back to. Is there not an economic development staff person in the city? Is that a position, economic development?
Yes, again.
Huh?
Yes, again.
Say that again, there is? Okay.
Yes.
Have you ever talked to that person?
We have not in this particular study because we're looking at the demand for it. I think that's one of the things that we probably need to go with next. Because my suggestion of meeting with developers, maybe bringing ULI to do that, might be something that the whole city can benefit from, not just Midtown. But I think Midtown needs to get a seat at that table.
I said, everything I hear, and what I start thinking about around Bethune-Cookman, one of the, I think the late night restaurant would just make a lot of money in that area. Now, they go to Checkers up on the corner, which is really off campus, but if something was near, you know, my days in school, the coffee, we had Kinko's, and that was my third home, besides the library. But anyway, so I'm thinking that might be a good area to start, because there are so many needs that students have. Might be a good area to start where it can begin to prosper. Because I think they would respond.
Yeah, they said they would probably be there virtually every night.
Yeah, I know. We had Wimpy's in our days, which was late night and stuff. So I know. So that'd be interesting to start right there, because you know students always hungry. Okay. And me, I always had to copy, and so I'm thinking about that. In terms of I guess a center to start with. Which one of the centers? Which one? Looking at the master plan, where would you think the center?
They looked at a couple of different things. One were community centers, and they were based off of Martin Luther King, one further south around ISB, one on the north end. And that was the point. I think one of those, probably the north end, because that you can draw on the school there. To get a larger parcel together, you're going to look at those ones on Nova and ISB, those locations. And when I'm saying larger, that is certainly going to be probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 80, 100,000 square feet, where the others are probably about 30 or 40. Yeah.
And my last comment is at festivals, we know that little, what's the name of the place? I forgot. Zora Neale. Eatonville. That a lot of cities are in terms of drawing people in, and Zora Neale Hurston is a one or 2 weeks, but throughout the year they're doing different things, and people have a, I guess, satellite office there because in preparation for that. And I believe that one of the things that's been coming up recently is a Miracle Bethune Festival. But I think when we were during the Christmas festival, one of the things we brought up is that use of the Daisy Starkin Park, and like a Saturday in the park, you know, different things. So that might be to draw people. At least I know Daytona as a nightlife.
You have two parts about these festivals. Mm-hmm. One is something that appeals to a larger audience because you want to get them in. But the other is you got to have something there too. You got to have a place that they can go while they're there. You know, a restaurant there that they can go to, or some other service too. So you got to start building them both. It doesn't mean you don't start the festivals soon, but you need to recognize that you have to have services for the people who come there, at least eventually. And so you need to work to both at the same time, sort of a dual track.
Ms. Hurd. Yeah.
No, I don't have a question about this as such. Yes, going back to the festival, there would be something, and the students at Bethune-Cookman, and that is something that we probably can work with the advisory board or something, because I think they're missing out on a student union building where the students can still be in a safe environment and enjoy the food, entertainment, and study area while they're there.
Yeah. The one group that we met with and talked about the Fresh Market. They also started with Fresh Market, but they added food booths too. But the requirement is that you buy at least a certain percentage of the food that you're going to sell there from the producers there at our market, so that it had to grow on itself. So if you do that, that's going to mean that the producers are going to come back because they at least got a certain built-in market. And you work them together in terms of these things. And you're also more of a far-reaching type of an enterprise too, which you want to be. You want to be something to the entire community. And so that's what you need to develop your work toward.
Mr. Tooley.
Yeah. Now, the Florida Safe Routes to School, can you give us more information on that?
You get a better one, don't you? Okay. It's in the report. It's a program, again, identified and administered by the State Department of Transportation.
Okay.
And you apply for improvements to the route that the children take to the school, which are primarily intersection types of crossings and other issues, but again, some improvements, walkways. It's something that makes it safer for them to walk to school. I think we even put in there a contact person from the state DOT that says, okay, this is the person you apply to it, which means you got to look at your route, go into your school, look at what your improvements you need to be, put a program together, apply to them. And
There's some information on page 56.
56,
But there's
okay.
also a website. I'm looking for that.
I knew I saw it, but I couldn't remember.
right,
where.
but those, that's one. Again, it's a simple thing, but on the same token, it's one that you need to. It dresses up the area, and I don't know too many people who argue that safety for children is.
Page 53 at the bottom. Because I know when we spoke with the principal of the elementary school, one of the things was that the kids don't have direct sidewalks a lot of times. They have to go through fields. It's not safe to go through fields at times due to bushes or trees or whatever. I know I wouldn't want my kid doing that. And he seems to be someone who is,
Was that Tara T?
Yes.
he seems very motivated. But I mean, this is something that the board, the city, the CRA, and the school, probably the school board, I don't know.
Yeah, if you're, if you're looking for things to get some headlines.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tara
it's a-
T doesn't
it's-
fall within
Yeah.
our
Page
boundaries.
53 shows.
The one does, I guess, and I don't know what the problem, I think there's two of them in your boundaries that you can do, yes.
I know we have Bonner, which is no longer Bonner. It falls within our boundary because it faces us. But Tara, that's the only elementary school we.
Again, it's routes
have.
to it, so somebody from the district could need those improved routes. It's not just at the location of the school, it's getting to the school.
It's to the school.
Yeah.
Our kids in the district don't.
Okay.
I mean, they can ride their bikes, safe.
Okay.
On traffic.
It is true that you can't spend your money, your TIF money, outside that district, but if it's grant money, you probably have to partner with the city to go after this grant, because if some of the routes will be outside the district, but still, you can be the impetus for it.
Ken?
You mentioned residential at the site of the old police department. What kind of residential do you have in mind?
I think something on more of a multifamily there. The density, I'm not sure what's approved in that area. I don't think too dense would be workable there, but something in townhouse and up.
Would mixed use fit there?
It will, yes.
So with business or on the ground floor and maybe two?
Right, yeah, that could be a look. Because as I mentioned, there's more traffic on Nova than there is on ISB. Okay, ISB may be your main street in Midtown.
That's surprising.
Yeah.
You mentioned 7 centers.
Okay.
We've been encouraged in the direction of 5 centers plus a major center at the intersection of ISB and Martin Luther King. Can you comment on that further?
Yeah, I think we looked at what they had in the report, and we don't have a problem with those numbers. What we were saying is that you couldn't do 5 centers today. There's not a market for 5 centers today. Does that mean that you won't have market for 5 centers in the future? We're not saying that at all. But what I think one of the things you might need to do is prioritize where you want to get your efforts moving on. Look at the first 2 or 3 that you believe are the ones that you really need. And that major center on ISB is probably something that's very important because...
Now, what is your definition of major center? Location?
Well, like I said, I think we're looking at the larger size, 100,000 square feet, the smaller ones in the 30 or 40,000 square feet.
Is this on Nova and ISB or?
I like that location in Nova and ISB because of the traffic, but if it works better to put it on ISB and Martin Luther King, we don't have a problem with that. We understand that Martin Luther King is the major north-south connector in the district, and that's why, if you're doing some of the community, why that would be a location. The important thing in marketing is traffic. Traffic isn't necessarily cars, it's actually more boots on the ground, and you'll get more of it at that location, ISB and Nova, than you will at ISB and Martin Luther King. That's all we're saying here. We're not saying that that would be a terrible thing for you to do or even a bad thing for you to do. We just think you might have more success. But it also is clear as when properties can become available and when you got owners that want to move and develop. If the one on Martin Luther King is there first, then that's where you go first. You know, don't wait for the other one if you've got somebody on the first one that you want. But I think don't ignore the Nova road either.
I have questions written down with respect to street lighting, street furniture. Is it something that would be worthwhile being specific, such as ISB, even though we couldn't do the entire district?
Yeah, the 2 examples I gave you were both on ISB. So would that be a good place to start? The answer is yes, because you don't want to go along and have the less attractive, I'm trying to choose the words very carefully, street lighting, and then come up with these very nice ones. They are very, very good. And then come out to less attractive again. It looks like there's something wrong there. It doesn't look a consistency in your district. So because you've got the others in place and because that's the main east-west artery, it's probably where you should start. But if you're going to put a center in, say on the north end of Martin Luther King, you need to look at lighting in that area too, because that's a question of safety. People feel safe when it's lit better. And why put in garbage lighting if you don't have to? I mean, yeah, it's cheaper. I don't disagree there. But if you don't have to, maybe you can work with the developer to put in a certain kind of lighting, a certain kind of style and look to it, and that would work for you as well. So start on ISB, but then move to where your centers are going to go. So maybe what ISB is the first step, Martin Luther King is the second one. You need to set those priorities.
We've started a program that dealt with street identification signage, and we had to set it aside by reason of our desires not match your pocketbook too well, but we do have something done on that. We might be able to move on it quickly.
Okay. You need to think about street furniture. Remember, if you've got benches, you should have shade as well as best you can. You should have, in these centers around there, public restrooms. You know, the thing you do not want to see is a sign in somebody's window that said restrooms for customers only. You do not want to see that. You know, you want to have something that that makes sure that people go there they don't have to worry about things like that. Okay. Now, does that mean you got a little bit more expense maintenance? Yeah, it does. But, you know, if it attracts more people there, then you would have recouped that money many times over.
Do you locate the seven centers?
You know, those are the ones that were in the master plan. We looked at 3. We put some locations on it. We looked at on ISB, either the Martin Luther King or the Nova Drive, and then further up on Martin Luther King, up around on the northern end. And those we placed 3, and those were where we were looking at, those particular locations. And that would be in the report. What are we looking at? We just don't think you should go to 7 or 5 that the master plan has today. Doesn't mean, again, you can't do it in the future, but don't do it today. You know, if the last thing you want to do is somehow get a whole bunch of space up there and nobody in it, it's going to look worse than what you got. So work on getting a couple of them together. You want the one further on the north end of Martin Luther King because of the community service area and the service to the kids from the school. That one you want.
Thank you.
You also want one on ISB.
It's a very interesting looking report. Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Mr. Gonat, when I was reading over the report, the one thing that I did discover and find out that basically this study is basically saying what this board been saying for the last 4 years. The thing about it, you even further documented it with your different analysis and your study from what was found out throughout our master plan, getting it created. One thing I want to know, will you be presenting this to the CRA and the City Commission once this draft is completed?
Absolutely. This is something that we would want to bring to their attention as soon as it's completed.
Okay.
To your satisfaction.
Another thing, I know a lot of questions have been answered and proved from this study. I know we have been asking about grants for a while. I was glad to see that with some people that we can contact in the draft. It also was trying to address the economic development in there also, which is very important. But when we sit down, I noticed that it also was really addressing what we was talking about even when Hardy Smith was here. The infrastructure in our community is at an all-time low. It didn't happen overnight, and you even brought that out, which is more important. Those dealerships, the same thing. I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but it's what the board has been saying all along, and it's our community that has constantly been driven down by the minority of people who are making the decisions. Again, this document is a powerful document because it says that this board has been right all along, and it's in writing now. Okay, and I want to thank you for that. I know to implementing this document is what's going to be key. That's going to be one of the hardest steps, I believe, that we're going to have to deal with, because people don't like change. But if our community is going to change, it's going to have to be implemented. When I was going through your document, what I'll do is, because you crossed a lot of things in here, I'll probably call you personally because of time constraint right now, and I want to get through the rest of the meeting. But I definitely want to call you before we go into the finalization, because it was some great information in here. I just want to make sure that it's clear.
Right, and I talked to Reed a little bit earlier that we're going to sit down and go over some things about what we need to do to finish up, clarify some points, strengthen a few points on it, and then probably most importantly is wordsmith. You want to say something the most powerful way you can without causing an issue about it. But like I said, we never thought we would get into planning. I don't call myself a planner. But to ignore infrastructure, to ignore facades and street escapes is stupid. Just stupid. So I've learned a lot more about that than I ever thought I was going to. Did I say I'm an expert on it? Not even close. But I can tell what's right and what's wrong. And when you look at the polls, you can tell what's right and what's wrong. And so that doesn't take a genius to do that. So we pointed it out. And it wasn't to make you feel good. It was because it was truthful. And that's why we did that. So, you know, I think that we're close to coming together for this document and making sure it's something that you all can feel comfortable and believe in too. And then we also gave you some actions that you need to press forward with to see that they can be accomplished at the next level.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Charles, moving on, we're going to go through your redevelopment project updates, please.
Good evening, Board. I just want to update you on some things that's happened since the last meeting. If you paid attention or looked at the agenda for the last CRA, you'll see that the property located at 925 Sycamore Street was purchased by the CRA, so it's now a city property. That's the apartment complex on Sycamore that we had a lot of discussion about. That is now, I don't know if it's actually been titled over to the city, but it has been approved by the CRA and the City Commission to purchase that property. So that property is owned by the city. We had discussion earlier about activities and things that, as far as my role to report back to the CRA, Dr. Jameson, I tried to go through the minutes every month and try to find out what the board members had discussed during that previous board meeting, and try to make sure that I cover whatever problems or issues that they might have. As a result of Dr. Jameson, I think it was, who complained about the grass growing in the cracks on Mary McLeod, MLK. I did a report. I'll pass it around.
Who received this report? That's
I'm not sure if I put a copy in your packet. I don't think I did because I just completed it. But it does, every time I make a report, it reflects in the minutes. So you have an opportunity to see what we're doing. If you look at that, the report is quite detailed. And the reason for that is because I had to send this report to Public Works to get some type of activity going on that. I attended one of their meetings and brought it to their attention that this needed to be taken place. They asked me to send pictures, so I sent pictures and documented it, and as a result of that, they sent the prisoners down and they cleaned up the street. So it may take a little more time to get things documented and get it to the right place that it needs to go, but once it gets there, we have the documentation in place to cover whatever issue that we have. And I've been doing that on a case-by-case basis as I get information. I have here another one that I did. This is a property located at 507 Nomus Avenue. This could be a real dangerous situation for residents in our area. This has been documented. It has been sent to code enforcement. Also, the person who looks at issues like that has reported this to EPA, so they can come out and do an assessment of it, and hopefully we can get this resolved before it becomes a real problem for that particular area. I have a property that's, I was notified today, 551 Cedar Street. That's a problem. We got people living in that property. I stopped by there this afternoon to get my assessment of that property. I was approached and wanted to know if I wanted to make a sale. And I told that particular person, yeah, it will be a sale tomorrow morning if they're in there, because I'm coming back with the police and we're going to board up that building. So I put them on notice that they need to get out of there by tomorrow morning. Those are the type of issues that we as staff try to address. It's very important, again, if you run across a situation, that you either call me, send me an email, let me know what's going on. It's kind of hard to get out at times, to be in different locations, and quite naturally, a lot of times, I miss a lot of stuff. Code enforcement is out there. We try to work together as a team to tag team some of these situations, because like the situation I went to this afternoon, it could have been very, very dangerous. It could have been, and I'm not going to put my life in a situation. I'm more adept probably to go in some of these locations than code enforcement is, because I'm out all the time. I know a lot of people in Daytona Beach, and I'm out talking to people, and I get a lot of information like that. People will call me, and I'm out, and they look out for me. So I feel safe. A certain situation I go in, and there's others that I won't go in without a police officer. And so it's very important that if you run across a situation where you need code to take an assessment of it, or you need me, please call me. Don't wait to the meeting to bring it up. We need to know, so hopefully when we come to the meeting, we'll have an answer for you, like I did with Dr. Jameson. I know she was jumping up and down when she called me on the phone when she saw the prisoners out there cleaning up, but this was a situation that we were able to take care of. Also, Phil talked tonight about the ICSC conference in Tampa. I gave you a copy of my report. It was in your packet. It was an eye-opening. It was an eye-opening for me. It was a new experience for me to go down and meet with the people who make decisions on shopping centers, to sit down and talk to them and find out how they decide what area they're going to go into. I met Phil, and we kind of divided the territory up, and he went in one direction, I went in the other, so we could benefit from the whole conference itself. And it was real eye-opening for me the 2 days that I was there, just to sit across from people who making decisions where they're gonna put their business. He mentioned the lime place that opened here in Daytona. I met the guy. I was talking to him, and I said, "Well, we need one of those in Daytona." He said, "Well, I got to leave here because I'm opening one up in Daytona today." So these are the type people. They are movers and shakers, and they're looking for locations to go. And we're not the only ones. Believe me, I met 2 people from Palm Beach at the conference, and they were doing the same thing that we were doing. So there are people out there looking to open in new areas, and I was glad to meet up with them. Also, I tried to make sure that the Midtown Board is representative in the area and recognize business owners in our area. This afternoon, I attended Ms. Turner Himes' sister funeral. We did have a resolution from the Midtown Board, Mr. Chairman. It was read at that funeral, so we're letting the community know that we're proud that they are business owners in the community, and respect the fact that they've been in the area for a long time, and we try to attend and represent whenever we can. Basically, that's my report. If you have any questions, I'll try to address them. In my closing, I would just like to ask, and I've already called most of the board members regarding the CRA issue with the county. I feel it's a personal issue to me, not just because this is my job. It's a personal issue for me because the fact that I've been working with Midtown boards for over the years. I've seen where we came from, I've seen where we are today, and I know where we can go to. And I think sometimes it's better, like my grandmama used to say, it's better to hear it from the horse's mouth than to hear it from the horse's tail. So I'm asking you on the 21st, next Thursday at 9 o'clock, to go over to the counter and hear it for yourself. Make your own decision. Don't hear it secondhand. You know, go, listen, and make your own determination, your own decision about what you think is going on. You're board members. You've been on this board long enough, and I think not to do that, I think you're not giving yourself a benefit of the doubt. Because I would hate for you to sit here and not do that, and then the next meeting you come back, everybody's crying and saying, so long, you know, because that's it. But please, I'm going to be asking people under the direction of Reed, the city manager and the city commission, if we need to get people to go over there to support our effort, I'm willing to do that, because no matter how long I work with the city, you know, I'm a resident of the city. I pay taxes here, and I want to make sure that what we've done so far continues and it benefits the Midtown area as well as the city of Daytona Beach. Thank you.
Thank you, Charles. Do we have any public comments? Suzanne, I see you here.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chairman and board. My name is Suzanne Grubbs, and I'm with the Volusia County Health Department. I just wanted to speak to the Safe Routes to School. I understand that one of the schools is not within the Midtown redevelopment area. However, the walkability study area is a 2-mile area from those schools. And so the Metropolitan Transportation and Planning Organization has done studies on all 3 of the schools in the Midtown area, which is the old Bonner Elementary, the Turry T, as well as Campbell, and those study areas encompass a 2-mile area surrounding those schools, and they have made recommendations for improvement to those safe routes to schools, and those are available on the TPO's website. And I believe I have a hard copy, which I'm happy to get to Mr. Bryant if you are interested. And Mr. Harris with the TPO is on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Is very well versed in those studies, and you know, might be able to answer any questions that you might have as well with regard to that. So the Safe Routes to School is a good funding opportunity to utilize as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you. We'll go to number 10, board comments. Mr. Williams.
This meeting's been a doozy. Kind of speechless in some respects, even though I had been keeping somewhat abreast on the information from the county. But I'll just move right past that. But I just like PMG. This study is really, really thorough, and it really cleans stuff up and clears up a lot of stuff and gives us a lot of useful information. And we thank PMG for this draft and for this report. I think it'll make it a lot easier for us to start moving forward in the event that we still can move forward. Other than that, that's my comment.
Yep, James.
Two different issues. I know that Mr. Ryan gives us report. I guess I was so excited about that street and the garbage can that I wanted some other larger way of noting it, because I don't know if anybody but me notice what is going on the street. So I think I wanted a large, not just in our midst, but some larger way of people, you know, seeing what is going on. So, but I just us, you know. I want everybody else to appreciate how nice the street looks. The second thing I want to talk about is a meeting that I attended recently. First of all, the way I learned about the meetings was on a phone call, and the way I thought it was that the board was invited, I'm talking about the NAACP meeting, that the board was invited to attend the meeting. Then at the Orange Avenue meeting, I learned that the board was to be presenters or talk about the plan. And I didn't like the way that informally developed, because it's my understanding that if the board is invited as a board, that there's some legality to that. And so it's like I didn't like the way that developed in terms of inviting. And then when I got to the meeting, I found that the plan was being discussed by someone who obviously hadn't read past page 4. People were mixing the Orange Avenue project with the Midtown plan. And the result, I think, and I didn't stay very long, is that there was more confusion developed there than anything else, because some people think the Orange Avenue plan is the same as the Midtown plan. And I don't know what happened after I left, but I've heard other people talk about it, is that they're all confused now. And the presentation of the plan was, and I don't want to say bad things, but it was presented not by a board member or someone who was familiar with the plan, but someone who had not read the plan in its entirety, because not only were they trying to read a PowerPoint presentation they had not read all the way through, but the little side remarks were really bad. Like there was in the Midtown plan, about parking underneath the building. So the little side remark is, how they gonna do that when there are no buildings where you can park underneath? But if you had read past page 8, you would know that that was part of the plan. So my bottom line is, we need to be careful about who presents this plan and who talks about this plan. And if the board is actually invited to present the plan, that we need to officially be notified and what our expectation is at the various meetings, so we can decide here whether or not the board is invited or individual members are invited and what their role is going to be. I went because I live in the area, but as a board member, I think that meeting caused more confusion than anything else. So I don't know how we resolve that or what needs to be done, but it was not a good meeting for our plan in terms of what people got from it and what people understood from it. Now, if I'm wrong, those other people who attend the meeting, let me know.
Anything else?
That's
Anything
it.
else? Ms. Benjamin?
Dr. Jameson, I did not attend the meeting, and the board was not invited to attend the meeting. You went because that's how you read that sheet they gave us at the Orange Avenue. But it was the NAACP meeting, and I feel this way. They could come right here, and they can hear everything they need to hear. They do not attend our meetings. Not one of them come down here to say anything when we're making these decisions. So I felt I wasn't obligated to go, board or no board. I wasn't obligated to go over there. They can come here. We ask people to come, and they can come here. Thank you.
That's all you coming?
That's all.
Mr. Tooley?
Yes, I'm not even going to mention the meeting. I am going to say this, though. We do need to really get on board about these CRA funds. the mere fact that this county council will say that they're dealing with new CRAs. New CRAs aren't funded. So how's that going to give them more money? If you're getting money, it's got to come from money that's already in existence. So we need to be very mindful of that and really act on that. Another thing that I wanted to mention is I want to go on record publicly as I can to thank Mayor Henry and Commissioner, I'm about to say Reynolds, Commissioner Reed for taking care of Miss Udella Good's property. They went out there and straightened out they got everybody down there to straighten out the sidewalk and things like that. She had been asking about that, and that was taken care of. I want to thank the zoning department for moving so quickly, code enforcement, I'm sorry, for moving so quickly on the property there on Marion Street after my good friend Mr. Bryant got stung by a hornet. But we took care of that very quickly. Also, the property on Cedar Street, I'm glad that you got to them before I could. But they are really moving quickly and expediting things and getting things done, and I think they are to be commended for that. I further want to thank the board for keeping a level head even in the midst of a bunch of confusion that was planned as a kangaroo court in that meeting that they claimed they were calling. I didn't say anything about the meeting, but but we as a board, I think that we're making great progress. I am definitely going to be in that meeting on the 21st because we need to begin to voice that we need to keep the CRAs in place. Granted, everybody is having problems financially, but to take away the only viable voice that many of the citizens have in regard to getting funds to do things that need to be done in the community, that's not the way to do it. We already have too much red tape, if you will, for anything to get done as it is. And could you imagine trying to go to the county to get approval to get grass out of the road that took 6 months to do it at the city level? Imagine if it had been the county level. That wouldn't have been one of the things that would have been high on the priority list. I also want to say thank you to staff for keeping our reporting going well, keeping up with everything for us, and our attorney for informing us what the rules were in regard to going to a meeting or any function in regard to the Sunshine Law. Thank you all.
Ms. Hurd.
I have a couple of things I'd like to say. Number one, lights need to be brightened on South MLK. You know, that's supposed to have been one of the blighted areas. And if we are paying the bill, why not get the lights that we need? Another one is, Mr. Bryant, on Cedar Street and MLK, the store and the house behind it, painting. Thank you. I will also indicate that in 1993, there was, which is 20 years ago, there was a streetscape on MLK. I guess at that time it was 2nd Avenue. And since it's an anniversary, I guess it would have been nice if someone like 2nd Avenue Merchants Association or something was doing something, you know, fruitful about it. I have pictures at home that they used at that time. Another thing is Pro-Bound Bowl. I was in City Commission meeting the other night, and we did have a gentleman speaking to the commission about a Pro-Bound Bowl, which supposed to be next weekend, March the 23rd. We have not heard anything about it in Daytona, but I do understand that the city knew about it. But the main thing was Mr. Price was coming to the city basically to inform them that his partner had been diagnosed with cancer. And in other words, I guess we're saying that money was short. Can you help me? But they did not take it through a vote or anything. Slight discussion, and the city manager indicated that it will work out. He did ask some questions and things about signing papers, and the board would be. But since that time, things have changed, and hopefully we will hear something positive that there will be a Pro-Bound Bowl game. Pro-Bound Bowl game means that guys from Florida, including 5 students from Bethune-Cookman, will play the nation, people from all over the nation. And that means that these guys probably would not have been seen, heard of, or anything if someone would not have taken it under their wings to try to showcase them. So hopefully the city manager, I just wished it would have gone through a vote. And if it would have gone through a vote, it would have been yay or nay, rather than having a meeting the next day or two and finding out you still want big money up front when we're saying we don't have the money. We want to work together. The guy has been in town and made contract with the plaza and everything, so it's not that I'm reneging on the activities that are being planned, but hopefully it will go well. Hopefully it will go well. Mr. Bryan, I mentioned about Vernon Street before. Those 4 houses that were built by the Housing Authority, they still do not have lights down there, street lights. Who's responsible for that?
That's the house authority outside of the development area.
Right. Okay, then. And to everyone else, have a safe bike week and do everything that needs to be done. But I would like to say publicly that, yes, I'm sort of involved with it, but I did not like the poster board that they have out this year. And I will let the people know it. Well, it has a big picture of a man on there, president of GMC or something. And the worst thing about it is it has a person on there with a bikini on. That is not representing Daytona to me. And just a little picture of bikers. That is not representing Daytona Beach, and I don't think that's what we really want in this city. Have a good night. Be safe over the weekend. Don't eat too much food around.
Thank you, Ken.
Well, I was pleased to hear the report from our consultants, and it's good that we made some contacts. If I can help, Charles Lichtigman's a personal friend of mine, so if we need a little something special there, I'll be happy to do it. And I think we're making good progress, and all of a sudden somebody wants to throw a roadblock in, but we will survive. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Board, one last thing, comment. As far as Bike Week is concerned, I passed by Custom Works. They're doing a good job at the new site there. I plan on going down to actually walk the property and talk with the owner. But it looks good from the street area. They're getting a lot of traffic. I saw over the weekend a lot of people going in. Also, they are abiding by the rules that they say they would. I passed by there Saturday night at 5 minutes to 8. They was zipped up, closed down. They had a security guy walking with a German Shepherd. So he's abiding by the rules that he said he would, and everything from what I could tell looks good and working well. I'm going to go and pay him a personal visit this week.
Very good.
Thank you, Charles. To the board, I just want to take the time to thank you all for your patience and the time that has been taken for these studies to be completed. But it take a lot of work. So I'm going to challenge each one of us, of you also, if you read, just take your time and read over this study and reach out to some of the companies, i.e., find out what grants are out there that will help our community, or developers. I'm working with some developers that we're trying to bring in here. And these studies that we have completed, the master plan was a great start. Now you have some very important information from PMG that will also help a developer, because it will show him what will work or what won't work. So that has really took us to another level also. So we're moving in the right direction. But if you can help Mr. Bryant, staff, ourselves as a board, and as a community, we had the information right here that we can go out in and market our city also. Forget what everybody else not doing. Let's look at what we can do. And that's the attitude that I take. We had the information, so let's try to market it. Let's go online, try to find out that information that Suzanne is talking about. Let's go online and try to find out the information that Mr. Bryan has brought back, or what Phil has brought back to us, because that we can work it, and then we can bring it to the CRA. We could take it to the City Commission. We can bring it right back here and put it out, send it to Reed, send it to Ben, and make sure we stay in legal. I call them to make sure that I'm legally right when I'm out there operating, trying to bring things into the city. So you have the same right to do that. Again, I want to thank you for your support. I do think the CRAs are important. There's a lot of misinformation out there, but it also is some things that haven't been done right. That's a system, but we all know that. So let's support what we need to support, and stay strong, and have a nice, safe Bike Week. Any other questions? If not, meeting adjourned.